Coming up, a conversation with John Tiegen, candidate for Colorado Springs mayor.
This is 6035 Media.
Casting an informed vote is your right and your duty as a citizen. I'm Brian Grossman, executive editor at 6035.
And I'm Shelley Roars, spokesperson for the League of Women Voters of the Pikes Peak Region.
We're teaming up to bring you conversations with the candidates in the April 2023 Colorado Springs city election. So this interview is both an episode of the new 6035 Vote podcast
and the League's Making Democracy Work podcast. So let's get to it. So John, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself? For those of us that may not know you, give us a couple of minutes worth of about you.
Only a couple minutes?
Yes, sir. Right?
We'll get to the rest after.
We sure will.
Been in the Colorado Springs area for about 38 years, so pretty much grew up here. Went to high school at Palmer, right down the road. Joined the Marine Corps when I was delayed entry program when I was 17. Went in, did 4 years in the Marine Corps, got out as a sergeant, infantry squad leader, and then went into heating and air conditioning. Actually went to trade school at Intellitech here and found out about contracting in about 2003 and went overseas, started doing contract work, did it for 10 years. Involved in the whole Benghazi incident when Ambassador Stevens and Sean Smith, Glenn Doherty, and Tyrone Woods were killed. And, I had to wait about 6 months for my lungs to heal, went back, did 2 more deployments. Then we decided we authored a book because the truth wasn't being told. So for us, ordinary for it to be told the way we saw it, what we went through was to write a book so that way it can't be twisted. And fast forward, well, not really fast forward, then for a while I've been doing speaking engagements, meet and greet, stuff like that, book signing, and finally decided to settle down, get a real job. Started working at DCF Guns, teaching the community how to, the proper weapons handling and stuff like that. And as for jumping in, I'm pretty sure the next question is probably, why'd you do it? I was actually on a lunch break, sitting on the couch Friday the 13th, January 13th, and saw it on the news, and something in me just said, get up and go do it, and that's what I did.
Get up and go do what?
Get up and sorry.
I lost the thread there.
Basically, go for mayors. I know.
For mayor. Yes.
I was actually watching,
okay.
and they said you had to tell the 23rd
right.
to get your name on the ballot. And again, something just said get up and go do it. And I literally got up, left, got the packet, and here I am.
Here you are.
All right. Let's get into some specific questions. The first question has to do with water and development. What's your stand on the 128% water rule and for extending water and other utilities to flagpole annexed developments?
Biggest thing is I know they're doing a little bit of work with the people down in the Arkansas to try to get some extra water. I know there's a big water issue. So that's going to be a big struggle in expanding on anything that we do, because it's kind of hard to keep growing if you don't have the infrastructure to grow. Mm-hmm. And as for power, it kind of goes back to the same thing. You shut down a plant before you have something else that's viable. That's they're running generators now that's increasing gas prices on homes that are running off of propane, natural gas, because they're using the generators to power the city now, which is not, to me, the smartest thing. They should have pre-planned it and looking, honestly, maybe, going nuclear because it's safer. I mean, they got submarines with nuclear power. They operate for years, no issues. They got nuclear-powered carriers operate for years, and it's the safest, cleanest way to do it.
So this was specifically about water and extending water to annexed developments.
Again, you can't. Right. Again, unless you have the infrastructure to do it, you can't.
Okay.
And again, if you have the ability to do it, we should all work with each other and help each other out. I mean, that's you can't grow just by being selfish and say, well, we can't because we have it, but we're not going to give it to you. But we don't even have it for ourselves. How can you annex anything else? How can you provide any kind of care or even care, protection, or assistance to anybody if you don't have it for yourself?
Okay. Shelley?
So some clarification for you as well, John. The League of Women Voters has a survey that you'll get of some of the basic questions. What's your platform? Why are you running? Some of those kinds of things. That's called Vote 411. So you'll be getting that as a candidate very shortly to kind of fill those out. But kind of also extending on that water question, two-prong here. We waste a lot of water. Landscaping takes up about 78% of our water usage with regards to, the resort down the street just running their water with a broken thing and it just runs and runs and runs, or the golf course that needs water all the time, or even my neighbor who plants Kentucky bluegrass, which is not native to the area. One, how can we do better there with regards to our guidelines and what we can do? And then you kind of maybe answered this just a second ago, but with regards to your answer with infrastructure, if we don't have it, should the city consider extending water and other utilities to subdivisions located outside our city that might never be annexed, but as being part of that regional water provider, which CSU has taken on that role? What are your thoughts on that?
I'll answer the last. So again, it goes, how can you give something you don't really have?
Sure.
You're making false promises. You're giving hope where there's probably not going to be any, but if you do give them, who's going to affect inside the city? I mean, being overseas and get rolling blackouts was constant over there because the grid just can't handle it. So you'd go 6-7 hours with no power, and then it would come on, and the people that just had it went 6-7 hours with no power, no water. But that's a third world country, and that's kind of, if you go beyond your means of your infrastructure, that's what you're going to have. You're going to turn to a third world country until you can find the adequate infrastructure to expand and help others. But and you don't want to leave people out. What was the first question?
How do we not waste a lot of water? We waste a lot of water.
That's a tough one because I see it. I mean, the sprinklers, I think, are a huge issue. You can you can put more codes out there, but there's codes that are already out there about sprinkler heads being busted, especially at businesses, golf courses. Maybe you need to use AstroTurf, get rid of the real grass, because that's easier to repair. I mean, that's what I had in my backyard is the football field because I didn't want to plant grass because you had to water it and maintain it and cut it, and being out in the desert, it's a lot of water. So maybe if golf courses want to be around, they need to use AstroTurf. That's one major way. It gets hot, so they need to figure out a way to keep it cooler because it gets really hot. But I think getting rid of landscaping in general is not a good idea because I think it increases the heat. Look at the roads. That's why roads are a lot hotter than grass. So same with rocks. They just produce so much heat instead of absorbing it.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
John, where do you stand on accessory dwelling units being allowed in single-family residential areas?
That really depends on the location. I don't think it should be in the middle of an already developed one. Again, growing up, I've lived in apartments that were next to single-dwelling homes, family homes. I don't see it as a big issue, personally.
So this would be ancillary units in people's private property. So if I owned a home, putting like a mother-in-law's cottage up, using it for Airbnb.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you were talking about apartments.
No.
So the Airbnb thingy.
If I own my property, am I allowed to build a secondary unit that either family could live in or more often than not is used for commercial purposes?
Well, here's the thing. It's your property. You should be free to do what you want on your property. If it's zoned that way, then it's zoned that way. You shouldn't be able to get rezoned to do it. If it's already zoned for a single family home, then that's what it is. Because that's when people move into those type of neighborhoods, that's what they expect.
And these would go into areas zoned for single family homes. The zoning wouldn't necessarily change.
I don't think that'd be that right for the people who moved in there to live in a normal neighborhood, not a commercialized neighborhood.
So you don't agree with accessory dwelling units?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't think, because then you don't know who's coming in, who's coming and going. Even sometimes the Airbnb, that's but that's still a single home. I've stayed in a couple of them, but I've heard also horror stories of people who have rented Airbnbs and they did not the renter. The renter actually did nefarious things like trafficked kids out of some of the homes. So it's a slope, but if it's your property and it's zoned that way, that's you moved into the neighborhood knowing it was zoned. But again, if it's zoned for just single family residential, it should not be rezoned, and you should not be allowed to do it.
So if it's already zoned and
single
allows
family.
for accessory dwellings, you're okay with it. You would be opposed to rezoning to allow it. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
It also depends on the property size. Like if you're living on 5-acre lots, that's more out in the open. It's not, you're not within the city limits, so there's not really many 5-acre lots here.
So you wouldn't support a blanket ordinance one way or the other. It would be more of a case by case sort of thing, or
Again, the neighborhood's already been developed and it's already there, and there's no commercialized Airbnb stuff. It shouldn't be there.
okay. Shelley?
Yes, sir. The city has an issue. The city has many issues. We're not perfect in any sense of the word, but we have an affordable housing issue. What are your plans on how to address that?
So that's a tricky one, but there's a lot of government grants that I've known of that helps build houses for affordable housing. I think that's the biggest way. You got to be very careful on a lot because the developers will come in and take advantage of situations, especially what's going on now with the prices being so high. But on the bigger picture, I just try to figure out, work with Habitat for Humanity, other nonprofits that truly figure out how to do it. The government technically shouldn't be getting involved because that's more of the public's domain. The government shouldn't be, I guess, interfering with that type because that's just more, again, the public needs to kind of do it. The government can kind of come in and help, but shouldn't be saying you need to go do this. It's about working with the community and seeing how we can truly make it cost and not, because a lot of low income housing brings a lot of crime. I mean, it just does. It always has. Even when I was growing up living in low income housing, it was a lot of riffraff running around, and I was one of them. But how to truly do it, again, we just got to figure out the best way to build, the cheapest way to build, and maybe, again, look at builders and give some kind of incentive to have more lower housing, and actually also stop large companies from buying up homes and raising the costs on things, because there's a lot of houses that are for rent that are owned by big corporations, and they're just robbing us left and right. I think we should stop that. I don't think businesses should be going around owning individual homes. That's going to drive up costs, in my opinion.
Thank you, sir.
Public safety question for you. CSPD is Colorado Springs Police Department. Short figures are anywhere from 50 to 70 officers from authorized strength. Crime is on the rise. Traffic fatalities and crashes are on the rise. How would you address public safety needs and specifically the police department?
I love this one. As for getting new officers, you don't need to lower the standards. What you have in Memphis, Tennessee, which just happened, is because they lowered the standards. You need to have, I think, stronger, stricter standards, and just more incentive of being a law enforcement officer. Right now, nobody wants to be a cop. Why be a cop when they take, if you do something, you arrest somebody, or you have to fight with somebody, and then next thing you know, they can turn around and sue you, and the city can't cover you. You have to have your own, and I don't think they're even allowed to have their own insurance to protect themselves civilly. So again, why would you want to be a cop when the immunity was taken away from split-second decisions? I mean, you're running around in Benghazi, I had split-second decisions. It's not fun. It's not. I mean, you don't know if the guy with the gun's going to point it at you and shoot you. You just have. I mean, you just don't know. But you need to. I think the mayors, previous mayors, actually need to go into the law enforcement and listen to what they have to say. I got a feeling a lot of times people at the top, they do what they want versus what the guys on the ground truly need. And just my experience from being the guys on the ground, the uppers don't really listen to you. They don't give you what you need and what you want. And I think that's the biggest issue. So just working with them and ensuring that they got what they truly need, not what we think they need, but what they truly need. And again, getting more people in, don't lower the stand. I won't lower the standards. I wouldn't allow them to lower it. I'd actually probably increase it. I remember when I was growing up, initially they didn't have to have a college degree, and I think when I hit high school, they implemented that. So again, I thought that was a good thing. Kind of sucked because I wanted to be a cop, didn't want to go to school, but whatever. But I think it's a good thing. Again, Memphis is a prime example is why you don't lower the standards.
You mentioned incentivizing people to become police officers. Is there something that can be done locally to do that? Are there specific things that you have in mind to do that?
That goes back to, again, talking with the law enforcement and see what their mindset is on it. And again, I'd rather work with them and talk to the guys who've been doing it for years. I know a lot about security and a lot about protection, but their job is totally different than mine.
Okay, thanks. Shelley?
Sure. We have, in addition to another issue that we have in the city is we have a homeless issue.
Yep.
Right. How do you plan to address this as the next mayor?
Just take a big fire. No, I'm just kidding. To me, dealing with the nonprofits and having my own nonprofit and dealing with a lot of veterans and actually first responders, a couple homeless ones, their biggest issue was addiction and mental. And I think that's going to be forefront. And we're working with other nonprofits like American Military Family, the same thing. A lot of it is mental and addiction. So you got to address the true cause. That's not everybody. It's not a blanket, but you can't just displace people. You need to get them into a location and get them true treatment so they can either recover or just regroup. During the 2020, a lot of people just lost everything. So you got to get those people back on their feet, and that's working with other nonprofits and other organizations. Again, the city shouldn't be taking the burden of it all because it's a community problem. It's not the city problem or the government of the city. It's the whole entire community. So it's going back and working with like Carmichael and it's Mount Carmichael. Sorry,
Mount Carmel.
Yeah,
Mount
Carmel.
Yep.
Excuse me, Christmas. Working with groups like that, especially for the veterans. Obviously, I'm a big pro-veteran guy, but getting just civilians off and get them to a true location where they can recover and get cleaned up, get a job. If you got to re-educate them. Again, that goes back to working with other nonprofits that are out there, and they're raising hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars for this stuff. It's a matter of getting them all together and working truly with each other and not separate. And I think, again, working with the veteran organizations, I saw that a lot, and I got probably about 50 or 60 of them to come together, and finally, and they work with each other. And that's how you got to do it, because everybody's always fighting for money. And when you bring organizations together and actually go to the true root of a cause, you're more effective than just going to this group saying, why don't you take care of this little pocket and go to another one, you take care of this little pocket. They all come together and just work together. And I think that's going to be, is it going to truly end it? You're never going to truly end homelessness. It just is what it is, unfortunately, because there's some people that just want to live on the street. They want zero responsibility.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
John, if you're voted mayor, do you foresee asking the constituents for increased tax? Do you foresee increasing fees or taxes for any reason?
No. I think, I don't know why we're paying more than Pueblo is, or I think even Denver. It makes no sense. We need to figure out, the biggest thing is figuring out where the money's being wasted. I looked at a couple jobs actually on the website, and I'm sitting looking at them. One's making almost $90,000 a year. In my opinion, was ridiculous.
This is a city job, or
city job, and I thought it was just it was on the city website, so I'm assuming it's a city job. Okay. And again, we need to cut out the pork and make sure money goes to where it's actually allocated to go, and not to pet projects. And
you think that the wages?
I think that job,
that money should have been going somewhere
I think
else.
that job that I saw was completely ridiculous for a city to have to deal with, because there's organizations that do a lot of the stuff that the city's wasting their money on.
Okay, so it was a position you would get rid of within city government. Okay, Shelley?
So mine has to deal with city council pay. Speaking of money, they make $6,250 a year for basically a full-time job. what are your thoughts on raising city council pay to a reasonable amount to be inclusive of others who don't have the ability to do that as a full-time job and quit their other job, which is basically really only retirees? What are your thoughts on that?
I actually thought that was a joke when somebody said they make $6,000 a year.
6,250.
Right, and about 4,000, according to the previous person who was here, about 4,000 in travel expenses. So,
Well, see, then it goes like cutting those pork jobs out and maybe giving the city council a true paying wage.
okay.
I mean,
So you are for it, raising city council pay, or do you?
well, so again, how do you get rid of corruption? How would you, if you got an elected official, it's a full-time job. I mean, that's $6,000. That's that's horrible. How do you get them from not fluffing a pocket, saying taking a little here, little
Because they're
there?
making so little, you're saying they're.
You can be bribed a lot, really, really easy. Again, I don't even know what the mayor makes. I don't really care. But again, if you're making enough to make a living, again, politics shouldn't be a lifelong career anyways. I don't know why you'd be I don't know if they are any, but city council for 10, 15 years. You go and do the job and you get out. You do what you can and you move on. But
They're term limited to
Right,
They're
term
term
limited.
limited to 8 years.
8 years. So
Right.
again, even 8 years.
Well, 4, and then they have to be reelected.
That's kind of
so-
crazy. But I wouldn't be against it because then it gets rid of that corruption chances.
Okay.
Do you feel like that's an issue right now?
Yeah, I do.
Yep. Can you explain that?
I kind of can, but without a little bit more I'm still waiting for a little bit, but from what I keep hearing, a lot of builders are fluffing a lot of pockets in the city. Again, I'm not saying it's the city council, but they're getting away with a lot of stuff. A lot of pet projects, I'm going to say it, like the stadium being built down here. Why wouldn't you fix the infrastructure before you put a stadium downtown? I mean, driving around here, the roads suck. It's just weird things that you see, and you kind of wonder, like, why are they doing this? I mean, you got the Sky Sox stadiums; it was just fine where it was. I mean, you could, why not build the other one out there? Why put it right here in the middle of the city? This ain't as big as Denver. This ain't the same mentality, but we got all kinds of open land that's easy to get to. Why would you, build it right here where traffic is going to really suck and they're building apartment complexes right next to it? Why?
Those aren't city projects, just to be clear. Those are
I know, but still.
okay. But you're saying that
I'm
the city
saying,
approved them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And why not put them out, closer to the airport where people can fly in and watch the games?
And you're equating the project, or linking the projects, the stadium project, with potential corruption.
I mean, everything's potential, but that's
Well, I mean,
kind of it just doesn't.
You are hearing. You said you had.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just makes no sense on truly why they would do that.
Okay.
So my other question is kind of a league question as well. It's very league specific. Thoughts on moving the spring municipal elections that you're in the middle of right now to a more of a fall, kind of school board election time, right? Literally, we turn right back around as league members, as those of us that are volunteers for this position, we turn back around and have 2 elections cycles in the same year. And for us, it's very difficult. It's a strain on our volunteers. So thoughts on moving spring municipal elections to the fall. Doesn't really matter for us when you do it, but one, to help increase voter turnout. Selfishly, for us, it's a time thing, but also can save the city up to $600,000 per year by moving it. What are your thoughts?
I think we should do it at Christmas.
Say what?
Well, election day is always November, usually. But yeah, Christmas would be a terrible voter turnout time, by the way.
I mean,
Terrible. We are all about increasing voter turnout. So, thoughts on moving?
I honestly, when I saw it, and I had no idea when the election was going to be until I got up and went down and again, I'm thinking November, and they said that's April 4th. I thought that was the weirdest thing. I was like, I don't know why we wouldn't do it, at the same time we do all the other elections. Again, I'm not a politician, never really looked into it, but why not move it to when it's along with all the other ones? It just, because it feels like, all you see is election. There's like no rest.
Right. I feel your pain. But thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, John, we're just about out of time. Did you want to take a couple minutes to wrap up and let us know why we should vote for you?
It's on a ballot. I think it's an oval thing you fill in.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you
Not how, why.
why? Well, my biggest thing is I want to give power back to the people. I want to run and actually take away power from our city government and give it to the people. What they did with the health department during the whole COVID thing was a complete disgrace. Using the health department as a power to shut businesses down, control businesses, control people. It's not right. And then for the city council to take away your voice for future developments, again, it's an overreach of power. And my kids are going to be growing up here. And when I saw that, it just something to me said I need to get up and do something. Because you always say, why not me? Or you're always waiting for somebody to do something. And I said, well, when I started, again, I'm going to say it, I started my UADF, United American Defense Force organization, to protect the community because of what was going on around the country. We went up into the neighborhoods when they were being attacked, when they were protesting the local police officers, and they were attacking the neighbors, actually, throwing their gun, went into one of the guys' houses. And, we showed up, they all left. Again, we're not there to fight people, but we're there to protect people, and that's what we need to do with each other is help protect each other from just anything that's coming down the line. In the government, what they did, they didn't protect us. They suppressed us. I mean, they took everything away. They forced us to do what they wanted, not what we wanted. I mean, they took kids out of school. Our communities totally suffered from it. Generations are going to suffer from it. They forced a lot of vaccines onto people, which now they're saying they shouldn't have. They're reimbursing people in the military. They got kicked out. They're reinstating people who they pretty much fired. Again, it's like that's not how our country works. They took so much power away from us, and if we don't take it back and give it back to the people, we ain't going to be here in 100 years. It's going to be gone because they're going to be taken and taken and taken, and nobody's going to step up and give it back. My goal is to give it back. We need to have more control over our government. That's why I'm running.
All right. Thank you, John. You've been watching or listening to a joint podcast effort by 6035 Media and the League of Women Voters of the Pikes Peak Region.
Be sure to follow Making Democracy Work and check out lwvppr.org for more information regarding our candidate forums in March.
And keep checking in with 6035 Vote to make sure your vote is an informed one. This podcast is produced by Dave Gardner, video directed by Nick Raven. I'm Brian Grossman, executive editor.
And I'm Shelley Roars, spokesperson for the League of Women Voters of the Pikes Peak Region. See you next time.
Hi, I'm Dave Gardner.
And I'm Nick Raven.
We're the podcast producers here at 6035 Media.
6035 Vote is just one of a growing family of hyperlocal podcasts that we're creating.
And these are for you, someone who wants to engage fully in your community.
We've got the 6035, which is a quick, lively recap of the top news stories of the week.
It's my favorite. It's really great and often funny.
I love having you as a guest, actually.
I do too.
And then we have Hot Takes and Streaming Breaks, which is a potpourri of news and commentary about movies, gaming, TV, streaming, and just so much more. It's for the youthful at heart, and that could be anyone, really.
Yeah, I'm surprised I even really enjoy it because Nick hosts that, and he's witty.
Well, and the cool thing is that you can watch both of these podcasts on YouTube.
Or you can listen to them on the go in your favorite podcast app.
And there's a couple more, but you can also visit 6035media.org/podcast to see them, browse them, sample them.
And then subscribe to the ones that you like.
And then subscribe to this YouTube channel.
Yeah. And if you really love it all, like we do, you can just subscribe to the 6035 Podcast Network podcast, which is a conglomeration of all the episodes, all the brilliance and humor that emanates from the studio.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of it. So like and subscribe today and go listen to them all or watch them.
What he said. Good. Thanks.
Got it?
That wasn't so painful.